Hi everyone, my name is Adam and welcome to the Green Software Foundation's Festive Tech Calendar Introduction to Green Software. As I said, my name is Adam and I'm also joined by my colleague Sophie. Hi Sophie.
Hi everyone, my name's Sophie, as Adam said. Welcome to our talk on green software today.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really happy to be here as part of the Festive Tech Calendar. For anyone that doesn't know what Festive Tech Calendar is, it is a community organized series of talks, demos, and blogs. You can check out the calendar at festivetechcalendar.com. It's all run by the community, and they are also doing a fundraiser for Raspberry Pi Foundation this year as well. So please go and check out the website. Our contribution for our contribution, we're calling it Dreaming of a Green Christmas, but it is an introductory session to green software, and it is suitable for everyone in the IT industry. So this is pitched at a general level. We'll not be going through any complicated code today. We hope you all enjoy the this explanation as to why software and tech matters to decarbonising our climate. So anyway, before we jump in, just a quick look at our code of conduct. So we do ask that everyone taking part in the live chat today is aware of others, welcoming, respectful, understanding of differences, friendly, patient, open to all questions and viewpoints, and most importantly, kind and considerate to others. And we do have a live chat if you're watching today's event live. So please do post your questions on LinkedIn or YouTube, and we'll do our best to answer as many of those as possible towards the end of today's event. So just a quick introduction to us. My name is Adam Jackson. I am the Community and Tech Culture Lead at the Green Software Foundation, and I'm responsible for meetups, our communities. We have an event coming up called Carbon Hack, which I'll mention later. I also ran our recent Decarbonised Software event, and I'm responsible for the Global Summit. So basically my job is about awareness of green software. And Sophie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks Adam. My name's Sophie Trinder. I am the Senior Technical Project Manager at the Green Software Foundation. So I'm responsible for all things tooling, looking after the projects that sit under our open source working group, and also responsible for helping our projects to advance and mature.
Thanks, Sophie. So we're going to start by talking a bit about why we should care about green software. And well, you'd probably be surprised how high the emissions from the software and wider tech industry are. But if you walk down a street and ask the average person, do you care about the environment? They would most likely say yes. And in fact, 92% of software practitioners in our survey say that they do. But what if we asked them how to solve all of those problems? Well, we'd probably end up with a bit of a lower number. And we all need to be better understanding how we, as individuals and as organizations, can lead those changes necessary. So certainly a lot of concern out there about the planet. And right now we have the COP28 event happening in Dubai. And there's a lot of politicians talking about what we can do to help the planet, but also all of us as software practitioners and tech practitioners can also do something as well. So really, that's what today is about. And also, an interesting trend is we're seeing an awful lot of people coming to us to say that they now have a sustainability commitment in their job. So green software is also important to people's career in tech, and we're going to see, this is a trend that's only going to develop. People need to understand green software and green tech to stand out in the job market, and that isn't just for developers. A bit more on that in a moment about all the different jobs that are covered. But when we say software, there's actually a really broad range of jobs behind that. And then craftsmanship. So it's hard to find a software practitioner or someone maintaining or selling a solution that doesn't want to deliver a really amazing product to their stakeholders or their customers. So we care about well-crafted software. Part of a good, well-architected solution is efficiency. and efficient software is often green software. There's a big connection there. So we want to deliver good quality software, and if we do that, we can also at the same time deliver green software. Okay, so let's just talk about some of the roles that are included when we say software practitioner, because we're very keen to say that it isn't just for developers. So obviously, software practitioner does include developers and software engineers, but it also includes well, folks like yourself, Sophie, as a product manager, or myself as a program manager. It includes people that are testing the software. Includes people who are maintaining the DevOps process, the designers, the user experience folks, and everyone that makes everything work behind the scenes in IT ops and networking. And then beyond the software practitioner, and these are roles that we don't include as a software practitioner, but where green software is still something that's really important. If you work in IT sales or customer success, or you're dealing with service management or project management, we still think it's very, very important for you to understand the principles of green software, so that you can you can be part of this movement to help decarbonize the industry, but also understand the wider impact of IT as well. So let's just talk quickly about some of the trends that are going on right now. And if you watch Decarbonise Software back, and we'll share a link in the chat for that, you'll see that Asim talked about this as well in our flagship event. But I just wanted to recap some of the trends we're seeing. So in the last decade, we've actually seen a quadrupling of software legislation, and so there's a lot of laws being passed around the world that contain specific provisions for environmental regulations in the EU, and also in America. We're seeing broader regulation around reporting requirements. There's been a specific sustainability reporting directive in the EU, and in California, a bill has just passed for organizations to disclose carbon emissions, and software is a big part of this. From a solutions perspective, so the main cloud operators, including Amazon, Google, Microsoft, also IBM, they all now have cloud carbon dashboards, and Google, Microsoft, and Apple are also implementing carbon aware computing. So perhaps if you are using a Windows PC, you might notice that it schedules updates at a certain time, and that is so it can take advantage of when the electricity grid is greener. That's not just in the home, it's also in the data center and the network that's delivering that. And we're seeing similar patterns from Apple and Google and many others as well. I think Xbox is another example of, I think there's a games console where certain updates and deliveries are made at night or off-peak times. So we're seeing that as a mainstream, green software is a mainstream solution that the tech giants are really embracing right now. And then from a cultural perspective, we're really seeing that wider awareness raising. So 37% of CEOs see sustainability as a top priority for their business, and we're seeing that number rising all the time. I already mentioned before that 92% of software practitioners concerned about climate change, and there's a big link to between not just green software, but also looking at performance and cost, and all of these things are connected. And actually, maybe one of the most important things is that we're starting to see demand from not just from companies but from individuals. So when customers are working with consultancies, they're asking about how green the software will be. When consumers buy a new device, we saw a lot of discussion from Apple a few months ago around how green the new iPhones is, but it's not just the hardware, it's also the software as well. So that is driven by consumer demand as well as regulations and the availability of solutions. So definitely lots of trends where we'll see awareness of green software increasing in the future. And now I'm going to hand to Sophie, who's going to talk a bit more about what green software actually is.
Yes, thanks, Adam. Yeah, after that great introduction, you're probably wondering what even is green software. So we're going to take a little look. So green software, when we start thinking about what green software is, when we're considering what it is, we first need to understand some of the negative environmental impacts that are associated with software. And this should be considered across the whole infrastructure, from data centers to networks through to the device. So the most obvious impact is the electricity use. The less energy that software consumes at every stage of that chain, the better. And when we're talking about this, we call it energy efficiency. But we also need to look at other impacts as well, such as water use and waste too. But if green software is when green software is good, then it is energy efficient when it uses the least amount of energy possible. So the energy or electricity that software relies on can come from a variety of different generation sources. Burning fossil fuels releases more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere than renewable energy sources. And therefore, we can say that electricity is a proxy for carbon. And software that is more carbon efficient when it uses electricity from cleaner sources. So when it's using electricity from cleaner sources, that software is more carbon efficient. So if we take those two sort of examples, energy efficiency and carbon efficiency, how do we decarbonize software? So we start with that energy efficiency. We can design products to consume as little electricity as possible and ensure there is as little waste as possible, and therefore help the end user of the product reduce their emissions. In other words, software should use the least amount of energy possible per unit of work. So if we take an example of a mobile app, could we make that app smaller so it uses less bandwidth when it's updating? Could it use less power when it's in use? These are sort of questions we should be thinking about when designing products for energy efficiency. If we look at hardware efficiency, that's where it looks at the creation and the disposal of the hardware. To be hardware efficient, we should use the right hardware for the right workload, so it's highly utilized. But we should also make that hardware last as long as possible, so that we don't have to emit more emissions creating new hardware sooner than is necessary. So could we write more efficient software so that a server may last 5 years instead of 4 years? Could we use one private server at 100% and use cloud computing for any extra requirements, as opposed to running 2 servers at 50%? And the third area is looking at carbon awareness, which we'll look at later in more detail. But that's when we do more energy intensive processes when electricity is cleaner rather than doing less when it's dirty. So now let's look at time shifting. Here you can see 2 columns representing the exact same amount of demand for electricity. On the left, the makeup of electricity generated and supplied, and therefore available on the grid, is cleaner. And we use a measure called carbon intensity, which is in grams of carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour. So when there's more wind and sunshine, the carbon intensity is 120 grams of carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour on the left-hand side. But if later the sunshine stops, the wind stops, then to ensure we have enough electricity generated and supplied to match that demand, a power company may have to burn more coal or gas. For example, on the right-hand side, same energy demand, electricity demand, has got a higher carbon intensity of 350 grams of carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour. So time shifting is where the electricity might be cleaner at different times of the day due to that unpredictability of the weather and the total demand for electricity. For example, at peak demand hours, like 5 till 7 p.m., everybody's got home from work, maybe they're cooking dinner. We often find that the carbon intensity of electricity available on the grid is likely to be higher because the energy sources are dirtier. So time shifting is where tasks that can be performed asynchronously can be shifted to be performed at a later time or a different date. When these tasks are set to be performed when the electricity is cleaner, that's known as carbon-aware time shifting. So sticking with the same example in the home, this could be like setting your dishwasher to run in the middle of the night, where the carbon intensity of the grid could be better. Many energy suppliers have already started encouraging their consumers to time shift their demand through different priced tariffs at different times of the day. Most simply, this is the Economy 7 day and night tariffs, but it does get more accurate once consumers have a smart meter installed. So that's time shifting when it comes to carbon awareness, but we've also got location shifting, which is where you can shift your load to a cleaner location. Tasks that are not bound to a specific region or that do not require a lot of data input could be shifted to another cloud region with smaller carbon emissions. And one of our Green Software Foundation's open source projects is called the Carbon Aware SDK. And this is a great tool that helps software developers build carbon aware software solutions that uses both time and location carbon aware shifting. We'll talk about a bit more of that. We'll talk about that a bit more in a bit. Back over to you, Adam, for some insights from our State of Green Software report.
Thanks, Sophie. And actually, had a very interesting question just now in the chat from Gregory. I'm just going to jump back to this time shifting slide. So Gregory's question was, what about nuclear sources? And, actually, so nuclear is very interesting in this. We tend to focus quite a lot on renewable sources such as wind and solar. Some of the other sources, such as nuclear or hydro, are also zero carbon in terms of the way we would measure this, but they aren't necessarily. There's still some controversy, is what I would say. So the thing about nuclear is it's a very it means that you've got a very consistent source of energy in the grid, and it's not quite the same as wind or solar, where they're going to change radically over time. But nuclear is also very expensive, and there's always a question mark as to how you dispose of that waste as well. So I think a lot of people would argue it's part of the energy mix. We don't take a position on it at the Green Software Foundation specifically, but certainly it does help with maintaining a very stable source of energy. I also see that there is a if you're very far away, do you consume more bandwidth to have information come back to users? So I think this is a bit more about location shifting. And yes, that is absolutely correct, because networking is part of where we see particularly carbon impact from networking. So you'd need to take a balanced view on whether it's worth, if all of your users are in the United States, and like this diagram, you think, oh, I'm going to move to Spain because it's greener. That might not be that helpful if you've got a very high bandwidth application. But if it's something like batch processing of data, where latency isn't such an issue, then it might be very much appropriate to do that location shifting. So I hope that helps, and keep the questions coming in the chat if you've got any more questions about carbon awareness or anything else, in fact. So I am going to just put the screen back there, and I'm going to talk about a few insights from the Green Software Foundation. Now, we did a survey and a report in May of this year called the State of Green Software, and there's over 30 insights, and I hope you'll go to the website, which is stateof.greensoftware.foundation, and take a look at all of those. But I've just picked out a few that might be interesting to you. And I think the first one is the one that always surprises people, and that is that software emissions are equivalent to air, rail, and shipping combined. How can this be? Well, a lot of people say that software is 2%, 3%, maybe more, but the estimates that Green Software Foundation has made using all of the available data is that software actually makes up 4 to 5% of global carbon emissions. And we think a lot of the underreporting of this numbers is because people don't necessarily measure the full journey of software. So they're only looking at part of the story, maybe the data center impact or the device impact. But we're looking at all of that, and we think it's 4 to 5%. And air travel is 2% today. Now, air travel, quite rightly, is very heavily scrutinized for its impact on carbon emissions and other pollutants. But if I told you that software could reach 14% of global carbon emissions by 2040, that is a big number. And we're just talking about carbon here. We're not talking about the usage of water. We're not talking about other pollutants as well here. And particularly with AI, there's a lot of scrutiny right now on the water usage of AI, not just the not just the impact it has on carbon. So my question is sometimes, is AI the culprit or the solution? Because also we have seen people starting to use AI as a route to cut carbon emissions in other parts of the carbon emissions. But certainly that is going to be an area that's going to be scrutinized more, and that's why I say it's so important today, and it's going to become more and more important in the future. We're going to have to work very hard, even just to keep it where it is, because with the the rapid growth of global population and the number of people connected to the internet, this number is naturally going to rise just on a per user basis. So I talked about this quite a bit already. Practitioners, almost all software practitioners are concerned about climate change in our survey, but they are not sure where to start. So there's not been much awareness up to now as to the impact of software on the climate, and much less the knowledge. But luckily, in the GSF, we have some great standards, we have some great tools, there's some great content. We are still at the start of our journey, but certainly measurement, education, sharing of best practices is going to be crucial to empowering all software practitioners to make a difference here. And I really think that that focus should be on empowerment. How can every software practitioner, how can everyone in tech make a difference here? I've had there is a question in the chat actually. Where is the source of this data? So if you go to stateof.greensoftware.foundation, thank you. I see that the chat's just gone in there as well. Then all of this data is backed up by references there, and you can take a look. And yes, you will always get different measures because it is so hard to measure the impact of software on emissions. So Sophie is actually going to talk a bit more about the challenge of measurement. So I wouldn't be surprised if that number goes even higher once people really get their head around measurement. But before I hand back to Sophie, just quickly, the value to business. So this isn't just important for individuals, but also it is about organizations too. We're already seeing a lot of focus on regulated industries, particularly banks, the public sector. This is only going to grow. So it's no longer seen as acceptable to ignore your scope 3 emissions. What is scope 3? In simple words, you can't ignore the emissions from hardware and energy usage in someone else's cloud network or device. So when an organization talks about scope 3, they're talking about something that they don't manage. So if they host their data in Azure or Google Cloud Platform, that's scope 3. We think that that should be measured as part of the overall organisation's carbon impact, for example. So yes, obviously, for organisations, there is a massive opportunity to get ahead of the curve, understand what's going on, be proactive in measuring and developing practices that deliver more efficient green software for clients. We've already said there's a cultural demand for this. So, understanding green software is good for business. We would also argue that in the long term, it's good for cost. And we go back to what I mentioned about craftsmanship, well-crafted software, green software, more efficient software in the long run has a lower running cost. So yes, there will always be an investment for businesses in education, knowledge, and also making those changes. But in the long run, that actually can save quite a lot of money. And now I'm going to hand back to Sophie, that's going to talk a bit about what the Green Software Foundation does.
Yes, thanks, Adam. So we are the Green Software Foundation. Both Adam and I work at the Green Software Foundation. So let's tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. So our mission is all about building a trusted ecosystem of people, standards, tooling, and best practices for green software. Being open source, community is key. Our community is software practitioners and all the adjacent roles and organisations. Our vision is pretty obvious, a future where software has zero harmful environmental impacts. That's not just carbon impact, but other areas like we mentioned before, water and waste too. There's an awareness that we won't go from 5% to 0% in the foreseeable future. In fact, in the short term, it's likely to increase, but we're passionate about providing a service to help influence a longer term change. Our efforts are aligned to shifting tech culture, knowledge through education, and of course, providing the tooling standards to support software developers in making the necessary changes. So we represent the global software industry. We have members across 190 countries, and our steering members include organizations such as Intel, Microsoft, and Siemens. We have over 60 members in total, and their role is to fund the foundation and drive the projects and standards through an open source organization. Yes, anybody can get involved and contribute via GitHub to our projects, and everything we create is for the use and benefit of all. So now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our current GSF projects. We classify our projects into two categories. We have software projects that produce some sort of software tool. They're maintainer-based. And we have document projects producing a document, maybe a standard or a white paper, and those are consensus-based projects. They each have different project life cycles. Software projects aim to graduate, whereas document projects aim to be ratified and published. So we've got several projects that are advancing in their states of maturity. The SCI, the software carbon intensity, has recently been improved by ISO, and so will soon find its way into that catalogue. We've got the Carbon Aware SDK, the one I mentioned earlier, that helps software developers reduce the carbon footprint of applications by providing the intelligence in order to run things at different times and in different locations where the carbon intensity is lower. For the Carbon Aware SDK, we hosted the hackathon last year. We've released version 1.1, and in just a few weeks, we'll be releasing version 1.2 of that SDK. And another mature project is our Green Software Practitioners course. We've had over 55,000 individuals complete the course. It's free to complete, and it's also earned an impressive Net Promoter Score of over 50. So we would recommend everybody to take that course to learn a bit more about green software. We've also got 9 new projects. One we'll talk about more in detail later is the impact framework. It's one of our open source working group projects that's evolving in incubation, and it provides a framework for measuring the negative impacts of software. We recently released alpha 3 weeks ago. We've also got the Green Software Maturity Matrix, which is a project in our community working group that aims to mature into a self-evaluation tool for organizations. And we've got the real-time cloud. It's one of our latest projects from the standards working group that will create a standard for cloud providers to surface real-time carbon data to customers, because we know without the data, we can't measure and reduce. We've also got executive programs such as our Green Software Champions program. And this is a program that aims to recognize individuals who are making a meaningful impact in green software. I'm going to hand back to Adam now for a bit more on what we recommend.
Thanks, Sophie. And I'm seeing some very interesting questions coming through as well in the chat. Looking forward to trying to answer some of those. Some interesting measurement. So what would we say is important for folks that are new to green software? So I've seen this diagram a few times, and actually, it's not necessarily always in the same order for every organization. Say learn, reduce, and then measure. Some organizations may learn, reduce, learn, measure, and then reduce. But I think we can probably all agree that the best way to start on your green software journey is learning. So learning is, we talk about the principles of green software. We have a course. Reducing is about understanding what can you do, what's the best practice out there to empower you to understand what you can actually do. And then measurement, as Sophie's already mentioned, tools like the impact framework, which is just in alpha, and also SCI standard can help you understand how to measure in a really consistent way. It's important to mention that we are still early in our journey with measurement as well. So, I think Sophie will talk a bit more about where we are on that journey, but we really are at the beginning of this journey. And because we are an open source organization, we also need all of your help to help us connect and understand all the different contexts that need to be measured as well. So principles is all about learning, and the good news is you've already started because you're here. You are listening to our talk on green software. But the next step we would recommend is to go and take the Green Software Practitioner course. Now, some great stuff about the practitioner course is it's suitable for everyone in IT. You do not need to be a software practitioner. You can, anyone in IT will find this both an interesting and informative course. And you also get a Linux Foundation certificate at the end, which you can put on your LinkedIn profile, and this can help distinguish you as well. There's no cost for taking that, and I would say that you can probably, if you've got a few hours free in your day, you can you run through that in maybe about 2 hours in total, and you can always come back to it if you need to do it over time as well. So there is no cost for doing that, and definitely recommend taking advantage. Patterns. So patterns is all about the best practices. So we have a repository of advice that's been considered and ratified through our committees, and this is currently split into categories for AI, cloud, and web. And I can just show you a few examples. So, for example, the usage of serverless cloud services is a really good way both of optimizing your software, making it more efficient, and also cutting the associated emissions with that as well. And that's because that the optimization is done for you by those cloud services, rather than you having to necessarily scale those yourselves or look to maximize the efficiency of what you have yourself. Caching static data. So this is a great way of reducing network traffic by holding it in the right place on the network rather than delivering everything per user. That's about shortening the distance ultimately. using sustainable regions for AI and ML. So AI and ML is something that comes up a lot. We talk about it a lot at the Green Software Foundation. We know that people want to play with some really amazing models. Our advice is, before you go into production, make sure you use a cloud region that's really green. And then when you do go into production, make sure you right size your model, use the smallest model possible. And then we've also got some advice for end user equipment as well. So how can we make that hardware last a bit longer? And how can we make that software more efficient and using less power, using less network bandwidth to get to it? So these are all patterns, as I say, patterns.greensoftware.foundation. And now measurement, which I think probably Sophie, I mean, I'm handing this over to you. This is the hardest part, right?
Exactly. Yes, Adam, thanks. Measurement is hard. And if you tuned into our Decarbonise software event in November, it's also on demand if you want to catch up. Measurement was a focus. And we think that measurement is going to be a focus of 2024. And when we first launched the foundation, we asked all of the members their pain points, and the overwhelming answer was yes, measurement is hard. Trying to explore all avenues of that measurement pain point has been the focus of the foundation for the last couple of years, almost 3 years since we started, and we've made quite a lot of progress. But for this to be an industry with thousands of professionals working to decarbonise software, for businesses to grow and thrive in a commercial software measurement ecosystem, we need to collectively formalise software measurement into a discipline with standards and tooling. And that's what we've been trying to do with the Green Software Foundation. We mentioned before our software carbon intensity project, and that now provides a standard for that measurement. It's kind of the what we should measure. And then our impact framework builds on that. It's providing the tooling for how to measure it. So we'll look at this in a bit more detail now. And I can see this might be the answer to some of the questions in the chat about measurement. So up first, to look in more detail, is our software carbon intensity specification. Like we mentioned, it's just been accepted by ISO as a standard, so it'll be in their catalogue soon. So this is a great way of standardizing how much carbon is emitted per functional unit. That's the R. The R here in this equation, it could be user or per device. It's up to you to determine what that R is based on the software you're trying to measure. So to calculate the score, the software carbon intensity score, we calculate by multiplying the energy consumed in kilowatt hours by the carbon emitted per kilowatt hour. So that's the E times the I, plus we add the embodied carbon emitted through the hardware the software is running on. You can see Adam's just put a link out to more detail in the chat, which if anyone would like to have a look, you're able to there. So we've built on this specification using through the tooling, the Impact Framework project, which aims to make the environmental impacts of software easier to calculate. It allows you to calculate your software application's environmental impacts, such as carbon, without writing any code. All you have to do is input your data into a simple manifest file known as an impl, and the impact framework will handle the rest. So to go into a bit more detail without getting too technical, there are three concepts in the impact framework. The manifest file, which contains raw data or information from where to get the data from. Then we have models, which convert that data to, say, carbon, and we can chain these models together into a pipeline, like a Unix pipe command. And then we have the impact engine. So that manifest file through the impact framework, which is a CLI, calculates all your impacts. And the impact engine uses that SCI specification equation for its computation. And one of the reasons we built this is because we believe that transparency builds trust. So with the impact framework, you don't just calculate a number and share that number to show how your emissions from your software are. You can actually share the manifest file. So somebody else can take the manifest file, compute it, they can challenge it, fork it, adjust it. They can verify all of the assumptions that you're making. So you're not just sharing your final output number, you're also sharing the workings out. So it's more trusted, it can be more trusted. So like we said, the Impact Framework project's just hit alpha release. We've started out with 2 working connectors. So for now, it's on Azure virtual machines and another specialized tool which Intel are building. But the project is entirely open source, and composability is a core design principle. So we want people to be able to build their own models, their own plugins, and use the framework to build on it, or pick from a broad universe of open source models created by others. We expect the community and our member orgs to build way more of these models to extend it to all different areas of software. So hopefully people will be able to understand the SCI without having to do lots of manual calculations themselves every time. And I'm going to pass back to Adam. He's going to talk a little bit about our carbon hack, where we're going to be focusing on Impact Framework.
Yeah, I am, but I also think it might be interesting to look at one of the questions that's come in. And this is from Leon on who's posted via LinkedIn. And Leon, I'm not going to be able to answer all of your question. Sophie might be able to fill in some gaps that I can't. But Leon's asked 3 questions. This is the first of 3, and I think they're all sort of important in the context of Impact Framework. So Leon's asking, when it comes to desktop software, are there established tools to be able to capture the relative energy consumption of a PC with a desktop software application running versus without the desktop software application running? Now, I don't know the names of these software off the top of my head, but I think the answer is yes. The open source community has produced tools that can measure that relative energy consumption for from the context of a PC. But and there's a follow-up question here: is if yes, does this tool have the ability to factor in the energy consumption running idly versus actively used? Yes, but I'm not sure how far it can go. And there's another question. They're all brilliant questions. Is there a way to automate this kind of capture as part of an automated DevOps pipeline? So during the release process, we essentially get a grade for our software's energy impact. Well, I don't know about that grading. No, I think Impact Framework is far more expansive and holistic, because with Impact Framework, our aim is to be able to understand what's going on in terms of, so if you're a software developer, for example, and developing a particular piece of software, our vision for Impact Framework is that you should be able to understand what's going on in the cloud, on the network, and understand what maybe not on an individual user's end device, but what a typical end user looks like, so that you can understand as a software practitioner how to reduce that. So there are tools today that can that an individual user can use to measure the energy input on a PC. I don't think there's anything out there that can tell you that can grade that or give you a score in the way that Impact Framework will be able to in the end. And that score will have to be taken in context, because SCI is one of the various outputs that Impact Engine will be able to do. People will be able to build different outputs for Impact Engine. It won't just be an SCI score. There will be other standards out there that people want to use Impact Framework for. So I think what we're trying to do is probably a lot more holistic than your question, Leon, but it's a very valid question. and we'll do a little bit of digging afterwards to see if we can find out what would be there for your specific use case. But Impact Framework, the idea is that you really build in some more capabilities over time. And yeah, I think as Sophie said, I'm going to talk about the carbon hack now, because this is very closely related with Impact Framework. So we last ran a hackathon in 2022. Late 2022, early 2024, we're going to run our next carbon hack. It's going to be all about measurement, and in fact, it's all going to be about Impact Framework. So we are looking to challenge teams around the world. It will be an online hack to help us extend Impact Framework. So help Impact Framework connect to far more data sources. As Sophie said, it talks to Azure virtual machines, but we need it to talk to many more things in Azure. We need it to talk to Google Cloud Platform, AWS. I think that there'll be some interest in on-premises data centers as well. So non-cloud or private cloud sources. We're interested in what data sources we can connect it to in networking and on end user devices. And then we're also interested in how we can develop out the tool itself. So how can folks help us document what the tool can do? How can folks help us make the tool more usable, develop out a UI for it, or develop new use cases? So the hackathon is intended for all software practitioners. I want to emphasize not just developers, but all those other people that really interface with the process as well. And Leon, you asked about automating this capture as part of an automated DevOps pipeline. That's absolutely the sort of thing that we would love Impact Framework to be able to do. So we are going to be launching a carbon hack website in probably later in December, and people will be able to submit ideas from sometime in January, and the hack itself will start at the end of February and run until the middle of March. And yes, it's completely open source, but we're also hoping to be able to offer some cash prizes. Let's watch this space. We are looking for sponsors for Carbon Hack. So please get in touch with us if you're interested in being a sponsor. And all of the sponsorship funds will become cash prizes. So none of that funding is being retained by the Green Software Foundation. It's all there to encourage folks to take part and build some really, really cool projects. I also just wanted to quickly mention that we have a global meetup community as well. With Meetup, it's a great opportunity to network with peers, to find out more about green software, discover the latest innovations. We have global events that we advertise this event, for example, via our global Meetup platform. And I can see I've left the wrong slide in from when I was doing this talk in Croatia. We're definitely looking for organisers in Croatia, but we're also looking for organisers elsewhere in the world as well. There are about, I think, 36 meetups today across 17 countries. Our newest meetup is just being set up right now in Turkey, and we hope to see even more countries and more cities set up their own meetup community. You can see the global map at grunsuft.org/meetup. Please do get in touch with us if you're interested in setting up your own green software meetup. What to do next? So first of all, a quick plug. If you are an organization or you work in an organization that would like to become a GSF member, then please go to grunsuft.org/join. That's our short link, by the way, Grunsuft. I'm never sure how to pronounce it. Benefits of being a member is to really help us build out those standards and projects. But of course, the Green Software is also an open source organization. So everyone can make open source contributions to projects as well. And all of our tools are free and open source to use. But being a member means, as an organization, means that you can really influence our roadmap. Take our free Green Software Practitioner course, as I already mentioned, greensoft.org/learn. Really great way to kickstart your journey in green software. If you go to greensoft.org, you can actually find a list of our projects, and you can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter with all of the latest events and innovations in the green software space. And we also have a discussions forum on GitHub. So if you're interested in introducing yourself to the rest of the community, head to greensoft.org/discuss. And start measuring as well. I shared the link to Impact Framework before, but I'm going to bring it up again, if.greensoftware.foundation. If you are interested in being part of that Impact Framework journey and also learning a bit more about Carbon Hack, the best way to find out more, because we don't have the website for the Hack Up yet, is to go to greensoft.org and subscribe to that newsletter. You can unsubscribe at any time, of course, but you will get all of the notifications as we come towards the start of that hackathon. So yeah, I hope that you've enjoyed this talk, and that this has been useful as an introduction. We were going to take questions at the end, but actually, we've really tried to answer those throughout the event. We'll give people just a moment in case they want to answer any last questions on the chat. But yeah, it's been really good to see the interest from the community, and yeah, we hope that you find this really interesting. Sophie, any last thoughts?
No, thanks. It's been great. Thanks for the questions. It's been good to see people watching us live. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, Benedict has asked in the chat which platform we use. We use StreamYard. It is a paid-for platform, but yeah, it's very easy to use, which is crucial when you're both producing and speaking at the same time, that you don't have too many buttons to push. But yes, I hope you all enjoyed it. And yeah, we'll see you all very soon, hopefully as part of the Green Software community. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. Bye.